Welcome back everybody for another Cinema 4D tutorial. Today we're going to be covering some basic animation in Cinema 4D. Just some simple techniques, nothing too fancy. And yeah, let's dive right into it. So the very first thing, when you open up Cinema 4D, you usually get this window. And on the side here it says FPS, so this is frames per second. So every 30 frames on our bar down here, so this is our timeline, our frames, so every 30 is 1 second. You can up that, you can make it bigger, you can make it smaller, but default it is 30. So, so this time bar here is 3 seconds long at the moment. You can add additional frames by adding numbers to this bottom number, and then you could just drag our bar bigger so that we have 180 frames, or you can keep it smaller for more precise frame increments, but usually I just drag it to the full. So now let's get into our actual animation. You can animate any object in Cinema 4D, but for this tutorial I'm just going to use a cube. So we have our cube here. So the first step to animating anything is you need to make, you need to create like key points and keying. So this little button down here under our timeline with the red key, that is to set a point at a certain time. So that's to record whatever size it is. It says it right there. Record position, scale, rotation, and the PLA of active objects. So if I go ahead and just not touch this cube and I hit this button, our keyframe, underneath our timeline here, underneath our green square on the 0 frames, this little blue square pops up, and that's our keyframe. So now on our timeline at 0 frames, Cinema 4D has recorded that this cube is in the exact same spot that it is. It's its right size and everything. So if I go ahead and hit play, nothing's going to happen. So now what we're going to do is, let's say I wanted 1 second to go by, so 30 frames. I wanted our cube to move forward like so. Now, to create the animation from our cube from going to where it was to where it is, I choose the frame, so our 1 second forward, I place it where it is, and then I hit record active object. As soon as I hit that, you're going to notice this blue line coming across the workspace here, and that's recording our animation path. So if I go ahead and click our return to 0 frame, which is this button here, our cube moves back. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play, and our cube slides forward over our 1 second period, like we showed it. So we've recorded our first movement. And then let's say I wanted it to go to the side after that. Well, I forgot to move it up to our certain frame. So 1 second later, if I wanted it to go to the side, 30 frames per second. So 30 plus 30 is 60. Now I'm going to move it to the side, and I'm going to make another key point. So I'm going to return back to first frame, and I hit play, and it moves to our second point. So that's a very, very basic way to animate things in Cinema 4D. So I'm just going to go ahead quickly and delete these points. And now, the second button beside our record active objects is auto keying. So pretty much what that's going to do is it's just going to automatically set a key point anytime you change or move the object. So if I set it, I believe I need to create the first one by myself. So I'm going to create the first one here. Now, if I set it to frame 10 and I move the object, it automatically creates a key. But if I have it on the same frame and I forget to move it to a different frame, and then I move the object again, it just auto sets it to the next point. So always remember when you're using auto key to always move the timeline up. So this is for faster animations that you're just moving things around and there's nothing too complex. You can just set auto keying on, which is nice. So I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to go ahead and delete those points. And now I'm going to show you some other stuff. So we have our cube here and we have our first frame set. Now you can actually animate the size of the cube. So let's say over a 3-second period, so our 90 frames, this cube gets very small. So beside all of these objects under our cube, there's this little dot. And when we click that little dot, it creates a keyframe like this button does for our movement. So if I change this down to 50 for all of them, and then I hit that little button beside all of them, now it's recorded that at frame 90, it's going to be 50 centimeters cubed. And if we scroll back slowly, you will see, okay, let me just think. Instead of clicking our key button for our first one, we needed to click our actual button beside our size. So those ones there. Now, when we scroll, it gets smaller. So you can animate the size of our object. And then let's say I wanted to do another 1 second later, it becomes really tall. All I need to do is choose the frame, choose the size, and hit the button. And you can animate size and stuff like that. You can also animate the rotation of the object using the same way we did the size, but with our coordinates under the cube object. So if I just choose some random rotations, I can hit those buttons, and now it's recorded. But for any rotation or any animation to happen, you must have a first point to let it know where to begin with. So for our rotation, I had set all these to 0 at the 120 mark where we left off. I choose 160, I did our random rotation, and then I hit the buttons again, and it animates it like that. So yeah, so those are just some very basic animation tips. I know you can actually key in the rotation like this as well, and then just hit the key point, and it keys it in like that. So instead of using the coordinates under the cube object, if you don't want to use that, you can just use the rotation tool, choose where you want it, and then just hit the key point, and it just locks it in like that as well. But yeah, so you can use these simple tricks to animate lots of things in Cinema 4D. You can animate... I know a lot of the effectors, like the bend effectors and everything, even that, they all have these little buttons beside the name. And that's all just for animating things. So you can animate a bend effector on a cube. You can make it animate so it bends. You can make one so it bulges, tapers, shatters. You guys get the point. But it's all about these little key points and setting our starting point and our end point. So yeah, guys, so that's just some basic animation tips, nothing overly fancy. but just a base for our animation before we move on to more complex things. But yeah, so that's going to be it for this video. If you liked the video, hit the like button, and if you enjoyed these videos that we've been putting out, subscribe, and there'll definitely be more great content. Alright guys, see you guys next time.